Have you ever bought something you didn't really need? And for a short bit, you were happy, excited, and felt amazing. And then just a little while later, that good feeling quietly turned into guilt. The buy, the high, the crash, followed by the little speech you give yourself. Why did I do that? I know this cycle well. I've lived on both ends of it. The part where spending felt like the only thing that could fix how I was feeling, and the part where I'd lie awake feeling guilty about it afterwards. So today I want to talk about the emotional side of money, why we spend when we're not really shopping for a specific thing at all, why the guilt shows up, and how to start breaking this cycle. Hey loves, welcome back to the Purfect Sunday Podcast, for women who want to grow as people without pretending they don't care how they show up. I'm not an expert, I'm just a woman who's been paying attention and figuring things out along the way. Today we're talking about money, but not in a budgeting spreadsheets, quit buying lattes and avocado toast kind of way. Today, we're talking about the emotional kind of spending, the feelings that send us on a spree, the guilt that follows, and how to break that loop. And I'm going to start by telling you about the most important $27 I ever spent. But first, this week's Sunday obsession. So one thing that has to be with me every day, wherever I am, be it at home or traveling, is my thyroid medication. And one big lesson I have learned while traveling is to always, always, always keep my meds on me in my purse or my pocket if I have to. Never inside of a carry-on suitcase. Twice in the last few years, I was forced to check my carry-on while my meds were packed in there. One time in Greece, and luck would have it, they lost my luggage and I didn't get it back for 2 days. And another time just last year, actually flying back from Minnesota or Minneapolis. I don't remember which. But they forced me to check my bag. Then my connecting flight was delayed, then canceled, and I ended up having to stay the night in the airport, and I didn't get my bag with my meds back until the next evening. So where I'm going with this is this. I recently got this little mini pill box. It's very small, but I could fit a 10-day supply of medication in there if I needed. And it's small enough to take up zero space inside of my purse or easily fit inside of my pocket. So it's very convenient. And the other reason that I love it is because it is just a very pretty little box. But I ordered 2 of them so that I can always keep one at home on my bedside table. I think it looks much nicer than my orange prescription bottle. And the other one is for traveling. I have been trying to make a conscious choice to add more beautiful, whimsical things into my life just for the sheer joy of it. And I feel like this is a very fun little way to do it, but it still serves a practical purpose. All right. One quick note before we get into this episode, because I know that money can make people feel weird. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't a budgeting episode. You're never going to catch me telling you what to do with your money, how much to save, or what you can afford. Only you know your numbers. But I will be honest with you. I don't believe in being reckless with money, and I'm not going to pretend all spending is good spending. I've been reckless before, so I definitely know the difference between treating yourself and running from a feeling. And we're going to talk about both of these things. This episode isn't about the numbers and the math. Instead, it's about the feelings underneath the way we buy. And my usual disclaimer, I am not a therapist or a life coach. Everything in this episode is just what I've observed, learned, or what has worked for me. So I hope it's helpful to you too, but please take what's useful and leave the rest. Okay, let's get into it. So a day that I will never forget, and one I still think about quite often for a lot of different reasons, was my 13th birthday. I was with my mom and my 4 younger siblings, and we were staying at a women's shelter. At some point that day, we took a couple-mile walk to the local Walmart, and my mom let me pick out 2 pairs of jeans. And almost 30 years later, I still remember the exact prices. One pair was $12.99 and the other was $13.99. You might be wondering why that is a core memory for me. But this is the reason why. That was the first time, other than shoes, that I got to walk into a store and pick out something brand new, something that had never been worn by anyone else before. Up until that moment, my clothes were hand-me-downs, things from giveaway piles, and the occasional secondhand store. And that day changed my brain chemistry and how I knew I wanted to show up in the world. Shortly after that, we ended up going back home and I got my first job cooking and cleaning every day after school for just $5 an hour. I was still living at home, so I didn't have real bills like rent and utilities. But from that point on, with the little money I made, I paid for everything I had or needed: shampoo, pads, lotion, makeup, clothes. And even though I was buying it all with money that I had earned myself, my mom would still very often call me spoiled just for liking nice things. And I told myself not to let it affect me, but in all honesty, it did. And I started to feel guilty for wanting these nice things at all. And looking back now, I think that is where this whole cycle actually began: the wanting and then the guilt right behind it. As I got older, my shopping money grew, and so did my spending. And I will be honest, looking back, there were times that I was reckless. There's a real line between treating yourself and being irresponsible. And I know that I crossed that line more than once. So building a healthier relationship with money meant something specific for me. It meant learning to spot the emotions that would send me on a shopping spree and then into a guilt spiral right afterwards. And it's something that I still have to be aware of and continue to work on still to this day. And that is what I want to talk about today: the emotional reasons we spend, why we feel the guilt, and how to start breaking that cycle. Here's the first thing that I had to admit to myself: a lot of my spending was never really about the thing that I was buying. When I bought new clothes as a kid, it wasn't about denim. I was very much aware of how financially strapped my parents were. It was something my mom talked about every day. So shopping was about finally getting to be a girl who had something new, something that was mine and that hadn't already lived a whole life on someone else's body first. That's not shopping. That's a 13-year-old trying to feel like she mattered. And it doesn't stop in childhood. Oftentimes we spend to change how we feel. We buy when we're stressed and we need to feel a hit of control. We buy when we're sad and we want a little lift. We buy when we're bored or lonely or feeling invisible or celebrating or trying to look like the version of us that we wish that we were. The late night impulse buys at 11 p.m. isn't really about needing what's in your cart. It's about whatever emotions that you were feeling at 10:55. And none of that makes you broken. It makes you human. But it's worth naming because you can't change a pattern that you're unaware of or you won't look at. So the question underneath almost every impulse buy isn't, do I want this? It's, what am I feeling right now? And am I trying to spend my way out of it? Now the guilt. Because for a lot of us, the spending and the guilt come as a set. But here's what took me years to untangle. There are actually two different kinds of guilt, and they need completely different responses. The first type of guilt is borrowed guilt. This is the guilt that isn't really yours. For me, this is exactly where it started, being called spoiled for liking nice things that I paid for myself. And maybe for you, it was also your mom, or growing up watching the women around you go without and calling it love. Or it could have been an old season of real scarcity that your nervous system never quite filed away as being over. That guilt made sense at one point in time, but it doesn't need to belong to who you are now. When the thing you bought was reasonable, a need, a small joy, something you worked for, that guilt is a ghost, remnants of something past, and you don't owe it an apology. The second kind of guilt is different, and I'm not going to pretend that it isn't real. It's the honest signal, the genuine little crash after a shopping spree that you knew was reactive. Not because you spent on yourself, but because you spent to escape something. And some part of you knows it. That one isn't a ghost. That's your own gut quietly telling you that purchase wasn't aligned. The goal isn't to bury that feeling. It's to listen to what it's actually pointing at. So the work isn't to feel zero guilt forever. It's to learn which guilt is borrowed and to let that one go, and which guilt is information and to let that information teach you something. So how do you actually break the loop? Well, these are a few things that have personally helped me a lot. First is to name the emotion or feeling before you buy anything. The next time you feel the urge to buy something, pause and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Am I stressed, sad, bored, lonely, or maybe even just restless? You're not trying to talk yourself out of the purchase, you're just refusing to spend on autopilot. Half the time, once you name the feeling, the urge loses its grip. For myself, I know that when I have a lot of stress in life, my impulse shopping always increases. And once I really became aware of what I was doing, it made it much easier to stop myself simply by asking myself, is this something that I actually really want or need, or am I just trying to distract myself from the stress that I'm feeling? And once you start to recognize the same few emotions that tend to send you into these impulse shopping sprees, you can get ahead of them and meet that feeling with a new habit instead. Which brings us to the second step. Find the non-spending way to meet the feeling. If you're spending to soothe stress, ask yourself what else can soothe it. A walk, a bath, calling a friend, meditating, or reading. The spending was just the fastest tool that you had. So if you can give yourself a few other tools to use, you will reach for the credit card a lot less. Then know the line. Treating yourself as chosen. You'd still feel good about this purchase a week later with no hangover of remorse. Emotional spending is reactive. There's a crash afterwards. So same dollars, same amount of money spent, completely different thing. You're not trying to stop spending on yourself. You're trying to stop spending at your feelings. And third is to put some time between the urge and the buy. Leave it in the cart. I know most of us are doing online shopping, which makes it very easy to just leave whatever you have put inside your cart and sleep on it. Give yourself 24 hours. And if you still want it tomorrow from a calm place instead of spiked emotions, that will probably tell you something is real and not just an emotional purchase. 98% of the time, when I go back and look at my shopping cart, I'm just like, what the fuck was I even thinking? Why do I have this? What am I even going to do with it? The thing is that emotional spending lives in the right now, and it's not always rational. A short pause is where this cycle breaks. Now, I have to say the other half of this, because I don't want you walking away thinking the goal is to white-knuckle your way through life, never buying anything nice. And anyone who knows me knows that that would be some hypocritical bullshit, and that's just not it. Part of the whole point of being here is to enjoy the beautiful vacations, the trip you'll still be telling stories about 10 years from now, a really good meal that's about more than just adding fuel to your body, a wardrobe that makes you feel like the best version of yourself the second you put the item on, beautiful things in your home that make an ordinary day feel a little special. None of that is the problem. A lot of the time, that is the good life, the texture, the part that you actually remember. And here's the thing. There's a way to do all of that responsibly, where there's genuinely no guilt to feel. It's planned, not grabbed in a panic. It's within your means. It's chosen on a good day, not reached for on a bad one. And it's pointed at something you actually value. When you spend like that, there is nothing to apologize for and nothing to spiral over. That's not reckless. It's just living well. And this isn't the opposite of everything we just talked about. It's the other side of the same coin, because emotional spending is reaching for the card to escape a feeling. This is reaching for something because it genuinely adds to a life you're awake enough to enjoy. One leaves a crash and the other leaves a meaningful memory. When I pull all of this apart, the 13-year-old me in the Walmart, the reckless seasons, and the guilt spirals, it all comes back to one thing. It was never really about the money. The spending was a feeling. The guilt was a feeling. And for most of my life, I was just getting tossed back and forth between the two, with my bank account caught in the middle. What actually changed things wasn't a budget or more willpower. It was learning to name the feeling that I was trying to fix. And when I can name what I'm feeling before I go to buy something, it's much easier to ignore the impulse. And if the guilt shows up after I make a purchase, I can ask whether it's a ghost from a girl who never had anything new or an honest signal worth listening to. Either way, I'm no longer just reacting. That's the healthier relationship. It's not all about spending less and not spending guilt-free, no matter what. Just being awake to the feeling underneath the money. So you get to choose instead of feeling the emotions choosing for you. So here is your weekly challenge. The next time you feel that urge to buy something you weren't planning on, pause before you check out and ask yourself one question. What am I feeling right now? And then wait 24 hours before you actually click purchase. You don't have to put it back. You don't have to buy it right now. Just name the feeling first and then pause. And this is where the cycle starts to break. So in closing, 3 things I would like for you to take into your week before I let you go. 1 is that most of our spending isn't really about the thing. It's about a feeling we're trying to change. And you're not broken for that, but you can't shift a pattern you won't look at. 2 is that there are 2 kinds of money guilt. The borrowed kind that isn't yours, that is the one that you need to learn to let go. And the honest signal after a reactive spree. Let that one teach you. They are not the same and they don't deserve the same response. And 3, the way out isn't a stricter budget or zero guilt forever. It's naming the feeling before you buy and after the guilt shows up. When you can name it, you get to choose. The emotions stop running the show. And one last thing, because it matters, please don't take any of this as a reason to stop enjoying your life. The trips, the good food, the beautiful things, the wardrobe that makes you feel like you. That's not the thing to cut out. That's the part to be even more intentional about, and the part worth being awake for. Enjoy it on purpose and let it be guilt-free. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with another woman who you think would enjoy it too. And if you haven't yet, please follow the show, leave a 5-star rating, and a kind review if you think I've earned it. It helps the show grow, and I truly, truly appreciate it. And come find me on Instagram at Monty_Wheeler. Say hi, ask any questions, or leave a comment. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you for spending your Sunday with me, and I will talk to you next week. Love you.